Hello again, and here we are at Perfectly Paranormal, episode 114. My name's Annaschmidt, and I'm here every week to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons, and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. And today you're going to hear a comprehensive guide to all the possible signs of energetic disturbances and paranormal attraction in buildings. Now, I've gathered this information over the last 30 years of observing the energy in homes and other places and what causes these annoying and possibly frightening issues and experiences that seem to occur in our homes. Now, firstly, we're going to look at the what. And I have 10 points that cover both the human and the geopathic stress that's connected to environmental causes that can be disrupting the energetic vibration of the buildings, of the land, of locations, attracting paranormal presence. And I have to say that this list is by no means in any particular order. So number one, the non-disclosure of suicides or violent deaths in homes, leaving negative residual energy that I call trauma imprints. Now, paranormal beings love trauma imprints. They really do pump out a very strong vibration that attract these beings. Now, I have to say that I knew there was something rather odd about the house that I still live in now, 30 years on. There had been a suicide here, which was disclosed to me by a neighbour. There was nothing mentioned to me and my partner when we first moved in, because I presume that most people wouldn't want to live in a house where there'd been a suicide. Initially, I thought I was going nuts, because you've got to remember, this was the early days. It was in my about mid-20s, and we were just starting a family, and I wasn't really into doing a lot of the paranormal work. My skills were there, but I wasn't as focused on it as I am now. And I'd be walking around the house or brushing my teeth, and I would feel the presence and see the outline of a man. And he'd be walking around the house during the day and night. Now, he didn't speak to me. No one else saw him, but I knew he was there. And I just happened to be talking to a neighbour one day, and we got onto this topic, and I asked her if there'd ever been any sort of reported hauntings in this home. And she told me about the suicide. I knew which room it had occurred in because it was the room that I felt it in the most, which was the bathroom, which I found rather interesting because that seems to be one of the rooms in homes where most suicides take place. Now, the spirit isn't here anymore. He was transitioned off into the light. He didn't actually know that he died. He had no memory of his actions before his death, which I found rather interesting because most spirits know how they've gone. But that's probably a topic for another episode. Now, number 2, unsavoury behaviours, such as drug labs, drug dealing, constant substance abuse, or violence on the premises. Now, as you would imagine, this type of behaviour would indeed leave a very detrimental imprint on the buildings. This is the actual home building, the outbuildings, the driveway, the land. The whole property would be riddled with the vibration of drugs because everything has a vibration. If something has a negative vibration and there's a lot of it in a particular place, it's going to pump out a really strong vibration. Now, number 3, occult or black magic practices in buildings or on the properties. This leaves detrimental energy depending on the different types of rituals that are carried out. And quite often when people are doing or when they've finished their rituals, the vibrations are still present and they're going to stay there until they're removed by an energy clearer. And the types of vibrations that are present are going to disrupt the energetic flow on the land, the earth energy lines that are in the land, the earth energy beings that are present. I call them land guardians. Land guardians are never, ever very happy when people are doing occult or black magic type practices on properties, because it really does disrupt the flow of the energy. And also, too, this is important, when people do those sorts of practices, quite often they use energy cording, portals, gateways, all sorts of different ways of connecting to people, connecting to other places. If these doorways are left open, this is an open invitation for entities of all different types to come into the premises from all sorts of other dimensional locations. It's just how it works. I've seen this in homes. I'm finding now that I'm getting a lot more homes that have black magic. Either the practices are either carried out in the home, or the home's a recipient, or the people that live there are a recipient of that energy. And it really does disrupt the flow of energy in the home. Now, number 4, building commercial or residential buildings on top of sacred sites or cemeteries. Now, we all know that this is going to be a problem because of the nature of disturbing and disrupting burial places of all different cultures. There are going to be spirits roaming around those sites constantly. And I have an example for you, a local Tasmanian example. Now, there was a news report of a private school here in southern Tasmania that had been built over the Queenborough Cemetery. Now, I think this was a private cemetery, but it doesn't matter. It's still burials. And when the renovations were being done and the school buildings were being extended, or they were adding a hall or new sports fields or whatever it was that they were doing, they disturbed nearly 2,000 grave sites. So the building had to be stopped, obviously. All of the bodies were exhumed, and I think they managed to find somewhere in the area of 1,200 identifications of the people that had been buried there, because the cemetery dated back to 1873. Now, I do wonder, I've never been to that school because it was a boys' school, it was a boys' private school. I wonder if some of the staff and students ever experienced strange occurrences in those school buildings because of the large number of spirits that would be present. Now, not every spirit, when they're buried, are going to stay with their physical body. Some just don't. Some go to be with their families, some roam around, some go to the light. But some of them, depending on their religious beliefs, might stay where they're buried. So you could imagine there'd be a lot of spirits out of 2,000 that were uncovered, and probably more that haven't been uncovered, that these spirits are just roaming around. Now, if there's spirits, there's bound to be other entities. The spirits are expressing sadness and sorrow and grief and abandonment and all those vulnerable emotions that people have. It's just something that happens when you're getting near the end of your life. Those emotions are present. And a lot of the paranormal beings, a lot of the entities I talk about, the dark beings, feed off the sadness and the sorrow and the despair type emotions. So they're going to be present on the land as well. So number 5, extreme environmental occurrences, such as earthquakes, cyclones, tsunamis, fires, and other natural disasters. These natural disasters disturb the energetic flow in the land. It just really does turn the energy in those areas upside down into really total chaos. And running through the earth, we have what we call earth energy lines. It's like a ball of yarn, or if you've ever made a ball of rubber bands, and you've got all the different rubber bands all going in different directions. This is what these earth energy lines are like, and they carry energy in the land around the earth. And when they're disturbed and disrupted, it really does cause turmoil in the land and in any buildings that are built on top of those sorts of sites. Also too, not only what happens to the earth with the earthquakes, cyclones and so forth, but the mental and emotional energy that impacts the earth that's caused by the massive human, emotional and trauma overload. It is all absorbed into the land, and it stays there, it stays present in those locations until it's removed. Now, number 6, massacre sites, where extreme trauma has soaked into the land and is still present. as well as the spirits that are roaming around those sites, because I've worked on a lot of local Tasmanian but also mainland Australian sites where there has been trauma from European man coming to Tasmania and Australia to live and causing all sorts of disruptions with the Indigenous people that were living here. Now, I have one particular site that I can talk about. Now, this is an example. I walked into a very small bunch of residential units. Now, this is in a location in Hobart on the waterfront. I knocked on her front door, and as I'm standing there, I started to feel unwell. And that's my sign of I was fine before I got there. Now, I greeted this lady, and she took me through to the kitchen, and we went and sat in the lounge room. And as she went to make a cup of tea so we could have a chat, I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden I start hearing screaming. The other 3 units on the site were unoccupied. No one would live in them. It was just somewhere where they should never have been built. Now, I'm sitting there and I'm hearing screaming and I'm feeling fighting. Now, it's hard to explain what I mean by that, but I'm very sensory with the feeling. It's called clairsentience, the feeling of energy. I didn't see it, thank goodness, because I wouldn't have wanted to see what was occurring, but I started to see red. Like the whole of my mind's eye, your third eye, whatever you want to call it, it was just covered in blood. Pools and pools of blood were showing up. Now, this lady came back into the room and we just kind of sat there looking at each other, and she said, "You can feel it, can't you?" And I went, "Oh my, I can feel it." And I said to her that I think where they'd built these 4 units may have been a massacre site. Now, I don't have any dates on that and I can't verify it. I tried to do some research on this particular site. There was nothing documented. I just had to trust my body's feelings. I was not feeling those emotions or seeing the red or feeling what was going on in that location until I actually stepped into that unit. Now, I conveyed the information to that lady very, very gently. And I think she kind of knew, like she's looking at me, not blinking, and her mouth slightly open. She kind of looked stunned, but she didn't look stunned. She went, "You know what? I think I knew this was here." She said, "I've been having dreams. I've been having dreams of people fighting and seeing these horrible massacres." And she said, "I just can't live here." So who knows to this day if those 4 units are occupied. But the trauma that was seeping up through the land into the building was actually affecting the people's health. This lady looked sick. She had really pasty grey skin. She said that her husband had been in and out of hospital. And she said this had never happened to him before. Healthy diet, healthy lifestyle, no real medical issues until they moved into that property. But I will say they moved out pretty quick smart. And she messaged me probably about, it was 4 or 5 months down the track. And she said that the health improved. It was slow, it was steady. They had more energy. They weren't lethargic and tired and felt like they were being drained all the time. So was their problem medical or energetic? Could have been a bit of both. So number 7, lack of cleanliness in buildings. This is a rather interesting one. I have seen this and I have experienced this in homes. The presence of mould, lack of good ventilation in the home, smoker's residue on the walls or in the air. And we're talking like your normal cigarette smoke, but also the marijuana. It's got that particular residual smell. And sometimes even the cleaning products that are used to clean homes can affect sensitive people's physical bodies and cause adverse effects. Now let's move on to number 8. Renovating homes. Now I've worked on, I have done a lot of house clearing on homes that have been renovated. Some of them done rather well, some of them done in rather weird, strange, wacky ways with really odd-shaped rooms and just strange. It's just the energy flow cannot happen through these homes. And I've had owners say that to me. I don't know why they've built this a particular way, but we can't afford to change it. Now, renovating homes can disrupt the energy in the home and also in the land. depending on what has been in the land before. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. That's coming up in point number 9. Spirits. Oh, now this is interesting. Quite often, the spirits of previous owners can be present in homes. And when their homes are being renovated, depending on the spirit's personalities and their emotional connection to the home, they can be very annoyed by the changes. They're just like, why are they doing this to my house? They don't actually, sometimes they know they've passed away and they're still there because they love the house. And sometimes they don't know they've died and they're still in the home. And they're like, why are these people pulling down walls and painting and changing that wallpaper I loved for the last 40 years? Often, spirits will make their displeasure known by stomping loudly in the hallways, moving or breaking objects, following people around in the house, looming over people in bed or elsewhere in the home. The list just goes on. They will let you know that they are not happy. Now, this leads into number 9. We're going to talk about the fabric of buildings. Now, what that means is we're talking about the structure of the home. We're talking about the bricks and the mortar and the wood and the windows and the roofing and the doors and the internal fittings. All of these parts of a home can absorb the energetic imprints from the land or the inhabitants. Now, this can be emotional imprints, which are the feelings that we create in homes. So that can be happy, joyous feelings, or it can be negative, rageful, hateful type emotions. It all gets absorbed. Buildings are sponges. The furniture in your home is a sponge. But when there's this negative energy in the home, it can really create a very uncomfortable vibration, and people feel it. Your body's spidey senses are gonna be tingling. You're going to feel unwell, you'll feel uncomfortable, you don't know why you can't be in this building. You find when you go to work and when you come home, it's like, I can't be here. So when living in these buildings, inhabitants can really experience increased detrimental symptoms. And there's no medical explanation. Remember, I never go straight to the paranormal. It's always look at the medical, the mental health, do the debunking in the home. But sometimes there is an energetic aspect. It is part of the holistic environment that we live in. It just is. And I know a lot of skeptics go, no, it's all BS. You can't prove it. Well, I can't prove it until I remove that sort of energy from people's homes and they go, wow, I don't know what you've done, but all of a sudden I'm sleeping. I actually feel better. My relationship's changed with my partner. We're actually happy again. So it's all about the subtle changes. Our physical body housing our energy body, it's all very sensitive to changes in the environment. Now, when I work on homes, this is relevant because I talk to the fabric of the building. I know that sounds odd, but I'm an energy worker. So I talk to the building and I say to the building, show me what you want removed. And because I use my psychic senses sort of all the time, mainly a feeler, sometimes I see and hear. Buildings will show me particular rooms that need clearing, or they'll show me a situation that's occurred, a trauma that's occurred, maybe a suicide or a death, or there's been, say, domestic violence in the home. I will see it, I will feel it, and I'll go, right, that's why these people are behaving a certain way in this home when they've never argued in their life, always been happy, things just flow and they sort their problems out easily. They move into this home and like everything goes to chaos and they just can't work out why. And they're just at each other's throats all the time. It's not them. It's the residual energy that's been absorbed by the fabric of the building. It just is what it is. Now this leads us into buildings built from repurposed wood, bricks, windows, doors, etc. We've just said, like, it can carry the negative energy from one site to the next. Now I've got an example of this. Now I'm all up for repurposing and recycling and reusing. It's what I do myself. But But I always observe the land and the home when I bring in a second-hand item, say some wood or maybe a piece of furniture. I always observe the subtle energetic shift in the home that may or may not be a problem. Now, this is another point. When buildings are burnt out or demolished, and say all the rubble, the structural bits and the pieces are just sometimes packed into a massive pit, and it's all covered over and all levelled because it's just too hard or costly to remove. Then months or years later, new homes are built on those locations. Oh dear. And some of the home's occupants experience strange personal energetic disturbances as well as energetic upheaval in the home. Now, I've got a prime example of this. I did a house clearing for a lady in Canada. When I sent her the report after I'd finished the clearing, she intensely disputed the level of alcoholism and violent energy that I found in the home. She told me that she was the only owner, the first owner. There was no other houses here before hers. She got quite irate and she said, "I don't drink." I didn't dispute it with her. I just said, "Look, this is what I found. This is what the land showed me and told me, and I've cleared it for you." And I just let it go. Well, on talking to one of the neighbours, she was having a bit of a venting session one day. She found out that her home had indeed been built on a burnt-out home previously owned by an abusive drunk. Now, no more needs to be said on that one. I knew what I found was correct and I stuck to my guns with it. Because sometimes you can identify the causes and sometimes you can't. As long as the detrimental energy has been removed, that's the important part. Now, number 10, we touched on this slightly earlier. Furniture. Oh my goodness. Second-hand furniture or furniture that's been left behind in homes, beds, couches and armchairs that have been left behind by previous occupants can hold and absorb the emotional and trauma energy from the previous owners. And when used by the new homeowners, whether it be the adults or the kids or the pets, sometimes they can feel really odd or unwell or sick or different, or their behaviours change when they sit in that particular piece of furniture. So if you're trying to imagine what I'm saying, think about a chair where someone has sat for the last 20 years before they passed away. It was their favourite armchair. And they sat in that chair, they watched their TV, they ate their dinner, they sometimes slept in that chair because they were just too tired to get up the stairs. And that chair has been filled with loneliness for that last 20 years. The family never visit. They don't see their neighbours. Their pet passed away and they're too old to be tired or be bothered with having another pet. And the loneliness has built up in that chair. Now, you can look at the chair and think, oh yeah, that's a beautiful leather chair. It just needs a bit of a clean. You can clean it with all the cleaning products that you want, but it's not going to shift the energetic vibration. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, you can purchase second-hand furniture or use furniture that was previously in homes, but be aware of any energetic changes for yourself and for other members of the family. Now, I've linked in the notes a very interesting article on geopathic stress and its possible effects on people. So I've linked that below. I found that really, really interesting. So now I think it's time that we looked at the 13 common and not so commonly understood signs of energetic interference in places. Now, this is connected to the paranormal beings. This list is by no means all of the signs, but I've just listed the major ones that my clients share with me or what I've experienced personally. And as I always say, debunk, and yes, debunk. Never assume that the issue is energetic or paranormal until you've ruled out all the possible rational explanations. So let's get into this list of 13 common and not so commonly understood signs of energetic interference. And I've got a very good example to highlight this. Number one, issues with construction. Now, this isn't renovating, this is construction from scratch. This is working purely from a blank piece of land. So this example, I had a client in the UK who wanted to build on a beautiful piece of land out in the country. Nothing was going to plan. And this wasn't for days or weeks. This was months, leading into years. Now, you can have things happen like plans get lost. Construction companies just don't turn up, don't have enough men, they go on strike. There's all these problems get in the way. Your finances aren't approved. Money gets lost, like the digital transfer of money gets delayed or lost or it can't be found. Tradespeople don't show up to the jobs. The list just goes on. And out of frustration, he contacted a fellow house healer that knows me and he recommended me for the job. So long story short, the site, it was connected to the Druids. The UK is a very old place. Lots of sacred sites. Lots of religious practices have gone on all throughout the UK. And this poor man happened to pick a site that had been used for sacred ceremonies for the Druids. Now, how I got around this, you'll find this interesting. Now, I didn't specifically speak to the Druids, but I spoke to what I call the land guardians. So I spoke very calmly, very respectfully with the land guardians, and they granted permission for the building to go ahead because they'd observed the man and his plans. He wanted to put up a meditation centre and build a cabin, like an eco-friendly cabin to live in. He wanted to build a community-type vegetable garden to encourage the people on the surrounding properties to come and sort of use this site to grow vegetables. And what I suggested, well, I didn't suggest it, I was told to suggest it by these land guardians. They wanted a little sacred garden area with a small water feature. And don't laugh, but this is what they wanted. They wanted a copy of the plans. They wanted a copy of the plans to be left at this particular place, put a rock on it or some sort of weight. They are being acknowledged and appreciated, and they gave their permission because they were being included. A lot of the time we as humans assume that we can waltz onto the land and do whatever we want without consulting them first. And within 2 weeks, it was all on again. The construction company was back, the plans had been approved by the council, the timber was being delivered, and everything was happening because the land had been honoured, the land guardians had been honoured. So number two, this one is pretty much on the nose. That rotten egg smell, sulfuric gas, 3-week-old roadkill type smell. If you've ever had that in your home and you couldn't find the cause, if your plumber couldn't find the issue, you've looked under the house for all sorts of dead rodents that can be present. Sometimes it can be a paranormal issue. Because these entities, some of them, I can't tell you exactly what types, I just call them the stinky ones. The stinky ones just drop smells. Whether they do it to aggravate people in the homes or in other locations, maybe they do it to get a response because they know that our human bodies are sensitive to smell, and some people are more sensitive to smells than others. So number 3, shadows or dark patches where there shouldn't be any, or seeing dark movement in your peripheral vision. Now, this can be quite common when there are energetic disturbances in homes. If it's not an eye issue for you, if you've been to the doctor, your eyes are okay, and you know that there's multiple people in the home or in other places that are reporting seeing these sort of shadowy movements or these dark patches that sometimes occur in corners, in cupboards. These beings like to lurk where they think that you can't see them. And they're just present there and they're waiting for that moment to just pop out and for you to create all sorts of emotions that they can then feed off. This is just how they work. Sometimes they like to lurk where they think we expect to see them. They see the movies that we watch, and they just know what triggers us mere mortals into fear and panic and paranoia, and they will deploy those methods to get what they want. Number 4, doors that are constantly opening, even though you know that you've deadbolted them, or doors or windows that get stuck open and they won't close. Or doors and windows that won't open, even though you know that you just walked through that door and then all of a sudden it gets stuck. I've experienced that here in this house quite a lot. These beings love to play with us. And what I did is I just asked out loud, very respectfully, for whoever or whatever was playing with the back door in my house to please stop, and the problem ceased. I was firm, but I was respectful in my request. Now, number 5, hearing sounds or voices, odd creaking, scratches, knocking, all those sorts of occurrences, and there's no rational explanation. People talk about this all the time. I did do an episode on debunking and talking about how skeptics see our environment. I can't remember what the number was, but if you look back through the episode list, you'll find it. Because these beings just love to interact with our environment. Now, whether they're on the land or whether they're in the home or in other places, they deploy the same sort of tactics. There's only a limited number of tactics that they can use. And they know that people are susceptible to hearing strange sounds or voices or that odd creaking in the middle of the night. An example here, my kids used to say that they could hear someone walking in the hallway in the middle of the night. And it would have been around 2 and 4 a.m. And we knew that everyone was in bed at that stage. The knocking that I've experienced, this was interesting. I've had experiences with knocking when I've been not necessarily in bed or in other areas of the house actually sitting right here where I'm doing my podcast recording. I have heard knocking within the space of the room. Now, it's not on the windows. It's not on the walls. It's almost like there's someone that's knocking from a portal in another dimension. If you've ever experienced that, you'll understand what I mean. Now, number 6, those wafting breezes and odd changes in temperature in certain rooms. Now, this can be open windows, it can be gaps in doors or window frames, etc. You do all the debunking. But if it isn't debunkable, if that's a word even, then it might be an open portal in the location, or it could be spirits, or it could be dark entities just moving about in the locations. It's not always dark beings. So number 7, the flickering lights, internet issues and electrical cutouts. Now this can always be rationally explained. I reckon about 98% of the time. But I've experienced many issues with dark beings playing with my laptop, black screening it, flickering it, doing the blue screen thing where it says it has to shut down and start again. Because I keep my laptop very clean. It is not overloaded. There is plenty of memory. There's no reason for it to have a meltdown. Now, these beings love messing with our electrics in any way that they can. They get a real buzz from our emotional reactions. Now, number 8, feeling unwell in the mind and the body. And it's only in certain rooms of the house. Now, this can be your body sensing the energetic presence of unseen intruders. Now, that can be spirits or it can be dark beings. Now, these beings can lurk in different locations in the room. They can be attached to furniture. They can be attached to objects in the home. Or this can be other locations. I tend to focus on talking a lot about homes because that's where I do my work. These beings love to hide in locations and they're feeding off the negative vibrations in certain parts of the home. Now, sometimes I used to think that they all roamed around buildings, but they don't. I call them stationary entities because they're just attached to one particular location, whether it be in the home, in a workplace, in another building, on the land, where there's been a trauma on the land or a large pool of emotional build-up. That is where they're going to hang out. It is just their food source. Now, number 9, feeling watched. Is this always a mental health issue? Possibly, possibly not. I mean, I have no mental health issues, but I know when there are beings around me because I can feel them. Sometimes I feel them staring at me. Sometimes I just feel their presence if they're close. Our bodies, our physical bodies and our energy bodies, our chakras, meridian lines, energy field, they can perceive the changes in the environment around us as danger. And they're going to send out warning signals to our brain. And depending on how we're wired, whether we're drama queens, whether we're feeling vulnerable, whether we just observe without fear, is how we're going to respond. And those responses, how we choose to respond, is then going to create the type of emotions that these beings want to feed off. So if you don't give them anything, they're not going to hang around you. It's just how they work. Now, number 10, nightmares. Now, nightmares can be caused by all sorts of rational occurrences. Problems at home, problems in relationships, problems at work. Whatever's troubling you, whether you're an adult or a child, can, cause nightmares. It can affect your sleep patterns. We go to bed thinking about our problems. We go to bed thinking about good things, but there's always that dark stuff sort of lurking in the back. And that's what can pop up when we're in that sleepy state. Now, if dreams can't be explained by stress or life circumstances, sometimes there can be paranormal lurkers in the home or in your bedroom or actually in, on, under, around or above the bed. I find these beings quite often hang around armchairs, lounge suites or sofas or in your bedroom because those places are where we sit, we relax, we download, we offload, we vent, and we create those pools of energy. So number 11, feeling panicky or flighty in the home or in other places. Now this creates a lot of fear, anxiety, you go into fight or flight mode, your body reacts in a way where you just can't settle. Now when we're talking about homes, you can do some research if you want to unpack rational causes for these possible issues. You can talk to long-term neighbours, you can talk to the real estate people, you can research council records, or you can scour through old newspapers and see if there's any rational reason why you're feeling unsettled in particular places. Now, I talked about the suicide that occurred in this very home where I'm sitting right now, back in point number 1. Now, I knew there was something that wasn't right in this house. And with talking to a neighbour, she was like, oh yeah, this happened. People know, people gossip, people talk. So you just got to do some unpacking and see what you can find. Now this leads into number 12. This is important. Noticing the difference when you're out of the home. This is a biggie. Probably 90% of my clients will often express that they're at work or they're at a friend's house or they're out socialising, gone to the movies, whatever, out of the house. They feel great. There's no problems, there's no mental issues, no emotional issues. But when they return home, energy levels drop, their emotions will quite suddenly change. They'll either be heightened or they'll be go into depression or anxiety, and they just really feel unwell in the home. This is probably one of my top classic signs of paranormal presence in places, especially in homes. We spend so much time at home, and if you notice the difference between how you feel at home and then you go out into the environment, go to work and so forth, and you feel different, is there something lurking in your home that needs removing? Now, number 13, pets. Pets are a key denominator in determining whether there's something lurking in your home or whether there's detrimental energy in the land. Sudden changes in pets' behaviours, obviously, if it's not medical, could be a sign of paranormal presence in the home or detrimental energy that's lurking in the land. I talked about this, I did a whole episode on this back in episode 24 of this podcast. So if you want to have a listen to the ins and outs and everything that I shared about paranormals and pet behaviour, go and have a listen to episode 24. I trust that the information that I've shared today has raised your awareness about energetic disturbances in the land, in places, in homes, and the attractants to paranormal beings. These beings are part of our environment. And if there's no detrimental energy in your home, then they're not going to hang out there. They only stay where the food is. That's really important to remember. So if you do find that you have energetic disturbances in your home that just can't be explained rationally, you've done all the debunking, please contact a trusted professional energy clearer, a medium, a house healer. They're out there. You've just got to look at their websites, look at their testimonials. I'm actually going to do an episode on that very, very soon about how to find and what to look for in a trusted energy worker that can help to clear all energetic disturbances, including those pesky paranormals. So in episode 115, you are in for a treat. I have psychic, medium, paranormal investigator and dedicated cemetery worker, Melissa Ferrazzano. She's here with us today for an in-depth interview where Melissa shares what it's like to live with psychic abilities since childhood, working with departed loved ones in burial, and using her mediumship skills during paranormal investigations. So thank you for joining me today. And don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording, or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. You can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.